All right, now we're moving on to EFT. EFT is one of my favorite things going. And EFT, also known as the Emotional Freedom Technique, or some people refer to it as tapping. It is such an amazing tool that can help you in so many different aspects of your life. It can help you with performance issues. It can help you with anxiety, emotional issues, even issues of pain throughout your body. Tapping can help you get rid of all that. So how did I start with tapping? Well, a couple of years ago, I had some problems when I was at a BMX track. I was the announcer for a big race, and all of a sudden I got this headache at the back of my head. And through this headache, I lost my ability to speak for about a minute, which was just a crazy time. People were coming up to me, talking to me, and I could understand what they were saying, but nothing could come out of my mouth. I couldn't talk. So what happened then was they called the ambulance. I went to the emergency, and I was in the hospital for a couple days. I went through a bunch of tests, and through this episode, I had doctors coming up to me saying that I could be having a TIA, or I could be having a stroke, or I could be having a brain bleed. There were so many different things that people were saying to me that it caused a lot of anxiety within me, a lot of trauma within me, and for the next 2 weeks after that, I was having panic attacks. And I was just, for 2 weeks, just living this, what felt like was this crazy life. Nothing seemed to be going right. My brain felt like it was all mushed up. So my wife, who is a registered therapist, she introduced me to EFT and another form of therapy called EMDR, which deals with tapping. And she helped me process and kind of get rid of all that traumatic event so I could function easier, I could function normally. And I was just amazed at how well it worked. So going past that, I started to research more into tapping and EFT, and I really enjoyed it. I liked what it did for me and how I felt around it. So I decided to take a course in EFT. It was a 1-week course where we worked every day, all day, going through tapping. I got my level 1 and level 2, which was fantastic in EFT. And then as I was doing my training, one of the big things that came to me was how well I thought it could do with sports performance. You know, we talk about anxiety and we talk about trauma and all these different things, but I thought EFT would make perfect for helping with sports performance. So once I was done my training, I came back and decided to use my son as a guinea pig. So he was racing BMX, as you've heard me talk about, and he was struggling with when it got really busy in the corners. So he would get into a corner, lots of people in there, and there'd be times that he would pull his brakes. And I would ask him, why do you do that? Why do you pull your brakes? And he said, I don't know, it just happens. Well, previously in his BMX career, he had had a bad crash a couple years before, which landed him in the hospital with some internal bleeding. So with that bad crash, there could have been some issues that were still stuck in him. So I thought, well, let's use this tapping to see if it really works. And we were going to a big event in Washington State, another big race down there. And I thought, I'm going to do some tapping for him leading up to the race. We did a week and a half of a couple different sessions just to get over the anxiety of getting into the corner and riding a little more aggressive, and we tapped through a bunch of different issues. Well, when it came to the race, my goodness, my son, as people told me, was a different rider. He was just performing at a different level. And when it went to getting into that corner, when there was lots of people in there, he did not back off. He did not pull his brake. He was on fire. A lot of people said to me after, like, who was that guy? He was like a different rider. And yeah, I believe EFT, the tapping, had a huge part in his success. Now, I have worked with lots of different athletes, and I do tapping. And I want to tell you about this one story about this. At the time, he was 5 years old, and he was going to the Grands, the biggest BMX race in the world in Tulsa. And he was going to compete down there as a 5-year-old expert. Crazy, 5 years old. But he was complaining of having butterflies and being very nervous. So we did some tapping around clearing those butterflies, getting rid of all the nerves and being focused when you were getting ready for racing. And I gave him a few little activities to do with the tapping, and he did them when he was down there, and he performed great. He was very calm when it came in up to the racing and very focused, and had a great time and came first, was number one in Canada and the United States. But the cool thing about the tapping was when he got back home, he was swimming at the local pool, and the pool has one of those really high diving boards. And him and his older brother decided that they were going to go on the diving board. Well, this boy, the older brother, went up to the top of the diving board, looked down, and was like, oh, it's too high. So he went back down the diving board. Younger brother went up to the top of the diving board, and yes, he got nervous too. So he came down. Okay, now we go. The older brother says, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. The older brother goes up there, and then he jumps. Well, the younger 5-year-old did not want to be outdone by his brother. So he goes back up to the top of this really high diving board and stands there and starts to panic again. But when he started to panic the second time and started getting really nervous, he started to do some tapping and started to do some of the stuff that we did with regards to BMX. He just felt calm and confident, and what did he do? He jumped right into the pool, and that's pretty cool that it can work with any sport and any aspect in life.